Church, I am so glad to be with you here today. My name is Tim St. Louis, and I am the director at Rock Lake Christian Assembly. And I have had no more faithful partner in ministry over the last 11 summers than DuPlain Church of Christ. And I just want to thank you for that. You are generous with your love. You're generous with your encouragement. You're generous with your prayers. You're generous with your support, and you send your kids in droves to our ministry. And we're so thankful that we get a chance to love and encourage them every year in so many different ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This summer, Andy asked me earlier, how was the summer? Did you guys have a lot of kids? I said, I don't know, I really haven't had a chance to even process yet what the summer was. I looked it up. Our numbers are actually the exact same as last year. We had 612 last year. We had 612 this year. So the numbers were great. I mean, that when I think about where we started, when I arrived at the camp 10 years ago, we didn't quite have 300 students in attendance that first year. And so to know and see what God's done over the course of the last 11 years, God is pouring out His blessing on the ministry, and it's not me who's receiving the blessing. I get to witness the blessing because I see what God's doing in the lives of your students, right? I get to see what God's doing, and man, He's doing amazing things in the lives of your students. Every summer, I have to prepare myself for camp. Our mission is to make disciples. And it's your mission too, right? Your mission is to make disciples here in your community, and you spend every day working towards that mission. I gear up. I go out to churches. I spend 9 months, traveling to different churches, visiting with people, and getting to see them, getting to encourage ministers. But then as we get close to like May, I really have to gear up mentally for what the summer is. But gearing up mentally is just like, I have to remind myself, Satan is going to try and destroy or tear down what God is trying to build. And so what I see is I just have to remind myself to be aware, right? To have my eyes open, to look and refocus every day on what God's doing, and to set aside the distractions. Sometimes, like there can be conflict between staff or faculty or students. There's issues that arise at camp. But when we remind ourselves, right, what is our mission? It helps me to set aside those distractions and push forward for the sake of God's calling, right, to make kingdom disciples. We bring in a mission every summer, and this summer our mission was Goodwill Ministries Africa, and I love to hear what each of our missions bring to the table. I'm sorry, I'm here as your mission representative. I'm sharing about another mission for a second. But stop. This is what I want to share with you. It was unfortunate. Our missionary wasn't able to get his visa to be with us. And so who had to speak every day for missions time? It was myself or my daughter, my oldest daughter, Bella, that spoke at missions each day throughout the summer. And so I really got a chance to share about the ministry, about what they're doing, but also to drive home the point of why we bring missions in every summer, and this is why you participate in missions too, right? It's because Matthew 28:19 and 20 says, "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you." Right? In Acts, right before Jesus ascends, he says, be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Right? Those are important words from Jesus Christ to you to go. And maybe that directive to you isn't the directive to go to the ends of the earth, or you don't feel that's your directive. But I'll tell you, those are the words to Jesus' followers as he's ascending right by Jerusalem, right? Be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, right? The surrounding countryside and the ends of the earth. So if he were here today, what would he say to you today? He'd say, do plain church, be my witnesses right here in Ovid, in St. John's, in the Lansing area, in mid-Michigan, and to the ends of the earth, right? Be my witness to the people around you. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we be a witness? To be a witness, we have to have seen something, right? We have to have experienced something. And if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, I believe you have. You've seen something. You've experienced something. You've experienced God's transforming work in your life. You've seen him show himself in ways, in relationships, in the way that he's shown his faithfulness. We sing about his faithfulness today, right? How has he shown himself faithful in your life? Well, when we're a witness to that, when we testify to that, when we share what God's doing in our lives, right? That makes a difference with those people around you. Because we don't serve a God who's dead. My God's alive. My God didn't just do things 2,000 years ago. My God does things today. He did things yesterday, and he'll do them tomorrow. And I'm going to see it, and I'm going to share it. Because people don't want to love and serve a God that's dead. And if we just continually spout this book, this is when God was alive, this is when God did things, and we don't talk about what he's doing now in our lives, in our churches. You guys have a growing church. You guys have a thriving youth ministry and a thriving young adult ministry, and God is doing amazing things in your church all the time. Testify to that. Tell people what he's doing. Invite them to be a part of it and see it themselves, how he's working and moving in your church, because your God, my God, he's alive. Look, God does great things at Rock Lake Christian Assembly every summer because you guys spend 365 days praying that God would do just those very things, that he would pour himself out in the lives of these students, that these students' lives would be changed, that they would surrender to him. Like, he hears your prayers, and you spend 365 days preparing for what God's going to do during that 1 week. And then when it happens, we should celebrate it, right? We jump up and down. I told the guys, I was at Young Men's Week, there's no greater joy in my life than to see a student come up out of the water and like lift their hands in praise as they've surrendered, as they've been reborn into Christ. Because God's done a miracle, right? He raised the dead. They died, and they're born again in his baptism, into new life. And they have a piece of the living God inside them. Right? They have his spirit living inside them. When they come up out of the water, that's a new person. And I get to see that, and I get to celebrate it week after week. And I think, how blessed I am to be able to witness it. I think I want to know, every year I try and wrap my mind around this. Why does it happen? Why does it happen at camp? I wish it was happening in all of our churches, right? Every week that we're just seeing people come to the Lord. And this year I was particularly convicted about this set of verses in Acts. It's Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 46. This is what it says. It says, they devoted themselves, and it's talking about those early church believers. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate with glad and sincere hearts. I said 46, it's 47. Praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And then what does it say? The Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Why do we see life change at camp? Day after day, week after week. There's something special. I believe there's something very special when we spend time every day in fellowship, every day in the Word, opening, studying together, sharpening each other, worshiping together, challenging each other, right? To go one step further, to take one more step in our faith, right? Those are precious moments that we have. And when we do that daily, you know what happens when we take a little step, a little step, a little step? By the end of the week, we started here. By the end of the week, boom, we're here. And it all of a sudden you come back and it looks like, man, this person made a huge stride. But it's because we studied together, we fellowship together, we worship together every day. And those little steps, all of a sudden, they become a big leap in faith. They become a big leap in faith, just like it was for the apostles then, for the believers then, for the people who were coming to the faith then. It is for us now. And I would challenge you, church, commit yourselves to the teachings. Commit yourselves to testifying to what God is doing. Commit yourselves to being together in fellowship because you sharpen each other. You encourage each other. You remind each other that I need to be out sharing my faith, right? Telling others. It's not just that I tell Andy what God's doing, right? I need to tell you what God's doing so that you can tell other people what God's doing. You're going to be so excited, you're going to accidentally invite somebody, right? Somebody's going to come. Somebody's going to hear. You're excited. And they're going to come. They're going to see what it's all about. And all of a sudden, God is moving. And daily, weekly, He's adding to your numbers. Those who are being saved. God is doing great things at Rock Lake Christian Assembly. It's happening every week. It's because of you. It's because of Him. When we work together, we're a volunteer-led ministry, right? I can't, if I were just there, it would be chaos and bloodshed, right? To quote Hamilton, right? It would be chaos and bloodshed. No, there would be very little that was happening. But you send droves of volunteers. I get to stand up in front of parents every summer, and I say, if I sent my kid to a soccer camp, I'd want to send them to a camp that had people who loved soccer, who were invested in soccer, who knew soccer, who played soccer. And they would, in turn, share that passion, that excitement, that skill and training that they've received with my students so that when my kid comes home, he'd be a better soccer player, right? He would love it a little bit more. We're not a soccer camp, people. We're a Christian camp. And so I want people who are passionate about their faith. I want people who love Jesus. I want people who want to see what he's going to do and are excited to just get a taste of what heaven on earth is. And we get to sit with students each week, and I get to watch how God works through all these volunteers. How God works through you. And I get all these people who say, I'm not qualified, right? My faith isn't that strong, right? I've been in the church for a long time, but I'm still growing in my faith. I need a couple more years, right, give me a couple more years. I'm a little bit stronger in my faith, then I'll consider serving. Did you say yes to Jesus? If you've said yes to Jesus, then Jesus pre-qualified you, right? It's like that credit card you get in the mail. You've been pre-qualified. Well, if you've given yourself to Jesus, he said yes to you. So this is my invitation. Come and see what Jesus is doing at Rock Lake Christian Assembly. He's already qualified you. He says, yes, you're enough. You're exactly what these students need. Your testimony, your story is different than anyone else. And he has a plan to use you, specifically you. Walk in faith. Take a step. It's going to feel uncomfortable. But you know what God does in that discomfort, in that tension? That's where he works. He doesn't work in our comfort. He works in the tension, right? Just like we talked about in the faith promise, right? When it's comfortable for us, that's us, right? But when there's tension, that's God. That's where God moves. Step out in faith and trust that God is going to use you. He's going to use you uniquely, your gifts uniquely, to change his kingdom. And I don't mean just at camp. I mean in your workplace. I mean with your friends, with your neighbors, with your community. This church, this area needs to continue to hear what God's doing in your lives, in this church, in his kingdom. Who are they going to hear it from? My friend Edward, the missionary with Goodwill Ministries Africa. He's a songwriter too, but he wrote this song. And it goes like this. How will they know that you really love the Lord unless you go to them? How will they know that you really love the Lord unless you go to them? How will they know that you really love the Lord unless you go to them? How will they know that you really love the Lord unless you go to them? It is a reality, people. There are people dying. Like spiritually, they're dead. What would you do if someone was right next to you and they were dying? Physically, they're dying. Would you just get up and walk away? Say, that's their problem. They've got to kind of figure that out on their own. Would you walk away? Or would you try and help? There's people who are spiritually dying all around you every single day. They need you. Will you tell them that you really love the Lord? Will you share what he's doing in your life? Will you share what he's doing through you? Will you share what he's doing through this church? Because God is moving. We just have to open our eyes and see it. Thank you for supporting Rock Lake Christian Assembly. I can't tell you enough how much I love you, how much you encourage me. My spirits are lifted just being here, seeing you all. Thank you so much for all you do for the kingdom, for Jesus, and to support and encourage me in my ministry. Thank you.